Welcome to r/MaliciousCompliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of request. Thank you, friends, for subscribing, likes, and supporting in the comments. And today's first story is, Eat Somewhere Else? She Didn't Specify Where. This story is a little long, but I thought it was really funny, because despite this not being entirely malicious, it was compliance that yielded hilarious results. I hope you guys enjoy. So about a year ago in late January, I started working for a resort restaurant that also manages one of the main pools and pool bars next door. I hadn't worked in a restaurant environment beforehand, which my previous boss knew. So a few weeks after I was hired, he started scheduling me to work by the pool bar, saying it'd be an easy way for me to adjust to the job and learn new skills. He ended up being right, because I ended up learning how to be a server just by helping out the guests lounging by the pool and the bartenders I worked with. One of the bartenders was a lady named Kiki, who will be important later in the story. Did I mention I worked outside? Let's just say that I have crazy respect for those who work outside all day during the summer. It was always hot and humid where I worked, and we didn't have many methods of staying cool. I also wasn't exactly adjusted to being on my feet 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, so my legs and feet were in pain a lot of the time. My shifts always started at 11 a.m., with lunch rush starting about half an hour afterwards, right on the dot. Orders would fly into the bar and out to their tables for nearly 2 hours, finally slowing to a stop at around 2 p.m. I'd always choose to take my lunch break, which I'm allowed to do, at this time, inside the building because I'm irritable in many ways and need to recharge. At the resort I work at, there isn't really such a thing as a break room. If employees want to eat, their only options are either to eat at their stations or offices, eat at whatever fast food place they had time to go to, or eat at the employee lunchroom at the back of the main building. The bar didn't really have a place to eat where you weren't in the way or seen by customers, so I'd always choose to eat at the lunchroom. It offered free food for the staff, a place to sit, and AC, all of which I desperately needed during my break. So whenever I finished dealing with the lunch rush at the pool, which normally ended around 2 p.m., I'd go to the lunchroom, make a plate, and sit down eating and watching videos until my break was over. Well, one day that suddenly changed. I came to the lunchroom a little later than usual one day, and the room was vacant aside from a few ladies cleaning the floors and tables. One of the ladies, who I'll call Lunch Lady, noticed me appear in the doorway, and before I could say or do anything, she exclaimed, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're closed." I kinda jumped a little because it came as a surprise, and apologized before kindly asking if I could still maybe eat there just for a few minutes. She refused, repeating that the lunchroom is closed, and I'm not allowed to let anyone in here until we reopen at 4. It was 2 p.m. at the time, and if I wanted to eat, I could make a plate and take it to my office like everyone else does. I shyly explained that I worked outside by the bar, that it's difficult for me to eat outside. I get nauseous in the afternoon, and I don't know where else I could go. I asked again, even adding in that I'd clean up after myself and only need a few minutes. She refused again, said I should have come earlier, and then said I could sit at a table in the hallway if I really needed a place to eat. I politely declined, to which she responded, "Well, I'm sorry, but I can't let you eat here. You can eat anywhere else but here. If I made an exception for one person, I'd have to do it for everyone, and then I'd get in trouble. Do you understand?" I just quietly nodded and excused myself. I'm really not a confrontational person and would rather crawl under a rock than argue with someone. And at the time, she did say it was a rule, so what was I going to do about it? I ended up talking to a few of the servers I worked with, and one told a story about a confrontation she had with Lunch Lady the other day. She explained how she wasn't feeling well and wanted to rest in the lunchroom for a moment just to calm down and relax, but was completely denied by Lunch Lady. She explained how she didn't have anywhere else to go, and it'd only be for a moment, but Lunch Lady kept insisting it was against the rules, even when the servers started tearing up. So it was pretty clear I wasn't going to argue. I didn't think to talk to my bosses about it either, because in my mind, they'd probably just tell me that they can't do anything about it, and I should just go there earlier too. So I tried my best to get there on time, but due to the lunch rush, I wasn't always so lucky. Most times I was too late, but other times, even when I was on time, they'd kick us out right at 2 p.m., whether we were finished or not. I tried for weeks to get there at a decent time, but wasn't so lucky. So I thought, well, she said I could eat anywhere, right? I've seen employees eat wherever they wanted to, even in storage rooms, so I thought whatever I chose wouldn't matter, right? So I found a comfy, secluded wooden bench in the female employee bathroom. To be more accurate though, it was the locker room the bench was in, but that locker room was connected to the bathroom, so everyone considered it to be the bathroom. I really didn't care too much as long as not many people saw me, which during 2 p.m. was pretty common. Even when people did see me, no one asked. For the first few months I worked, I didn't really talk much to the staff outside of my department, so most people who saw me ignored me. I did this for about a month before someone finally noticed. This is when Kiki appears in the story. Up to this point, I always felt somewhat intimidated by her because she always looked frustrated, and she didn't look too patient with new hires. But after this, I started realizing that on the inside, she's kind of a motherly woman who was only stressed out because of her job. Kiki was heading to the bathroom and was just passing by the bench I was sitting at before she noticed me, then the plate of food in my lap. She stopped in her tracks, and her expression turned from tired focus to a kind of bizarre confusion. "What are you doing?" she asked in a quiet, confused voice. "Eating lunch," I replied casually. "Why are you eating here? Why not in the lunchroom?" I explained the conversation I had with Lunch Lady and what she told me. Kiki's face got red. It was red already, but now it was visibly getting redder and redder, like a sunburn slapped her face. I noticed this along with the awkward silence, and added that I'm okay with this though, I've done it for a few weeks already. This wasn't the best thing to say, because she said, "No, this isn't okay. Pick up your stuff and we're gonna talk to this lady." I sheepishly did as I was told and just followed her. Lunch Lady was there, as she always was, cleaning up a dark lunchroom on her own, and we came around the corner. Kiki started arguing with her about why she wouldn't let one person into the lunchroom, why she wouldn't even compromise, how the rules are crud, and then said, "Did you even know that this girl was eating in the bathroom for a month because you told her she couldn't eat here?" Lunch Lady's face looked like a mixture of confusion, shock, and pity, but she kept explaining that if I made one exception, I'd have to make more. Kiki then noticed two things. The first was that the lunchroom was completely dark and almost empty, aside from one lady in the corner, which was the second thing she noticed. No one was really lining up to get into the closed and dark lunchroom. The lady was on her phone, but then started looking over at us as the conversation continued. "What's the problem with letting one person eat here for just 30 minutes? We're both working outside and we deserve some time inside, so why can't you make an exception here? If cleaning is the issue, then she," referring to me, "can clean up after herself. She's clearly old enough to know how to do it, 22 at the time, and you've already got one person in here, so what's the harm in one more?" Lunch Lady was about to argue again, until the lady in the corner chimed in. "It's okay, Lunch Lady, she's free to sit in here and eat." So that's what I did. I sat, ate, talked to the lady in the corner, cleaned, and left when I was done. The lady who was there turned out to be one of the managers of the resort, and she was very nice and warm to me. The next day I wasn't turned away, or the next day, or the next week. I was never told to eat anywhere else again after that. Lunch Lady, who used to patrol the room long after it closed, wasn't there as much anymore after that. She wasn't fired, as I saw her much later, but I suspect management decided to adjust the rules. I didn't need to go there after summer had ended, and the pool bar closed, so I never found out how much had changed. I still find it funny how I just followed the rules, not trying to be malicious, and ended up proving a point regardless. I'm a bit more comfortable with confrontation than I was before now. The second story is 3 plus 3 plus 1.5 equals all you're getting is a half hour tops. Years ago, one of my employer's clients decided to set up a new office in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I got chosen to spend 3 weeks there getting the new space set up. Also chosen for the job was a guy from another division's Chicago office, Dave. I'd never worked with Dave before, but from the start, I didn't like him much. He was never less than 15 minutes late. He lumbered like a zombie, and I caught him dozing off more than a few times during the first week on site. Still, he was the closest thing I had to a friend in Fort Wayne, so I invited him out to the bar on Friday for all the company-funded booze we could drink. "I wish," he says. "I'm going home and passing out until Monday. The commute has been killing me." Wait, what? It seems Dave's boss had been a D, and instead of paying for a plane ticket, hotel and rental car like my boss had, he'd instructed Dave to drive. From Chicago, almost 3 hours away. Me, dude, that's like totally no bueno. 6 hours a day just driving? Dave, yeah, it sucks. Me, still, it'll be killer money. That puts you at what, like 70 hours this week? Jeez. Make sure you put in for your gas and tolls quick though. The last time I had to get reimbursed for expenses, it took him over a month. I could see what little light Dave's eyes held fade. Dave, they're not paying for any of that. Hearing that, I put in a call to my boss, who was as puzzled as I was. If he'd worked for our division, he'd be paid for his drive time and expenses at least, and we were both pretty sure it was a corporate edict, and not something individual divisions could choose not to obey. Unfortunately, neither I nor my boss had any say in the matter, and neither of us were familiar with Illinois or Indiana labor law, so all we could do was advise Dave to save his receipts for the IRS and complain to HR. On Monday, Dave was late again. After an hour, I was worried and called his cell phone. "Dave, I just passed Portage, making pretty good time all things considered. I should be there in about 2 hours. Dave sounded perfectly happy about it, so I figured he'd been required to stop into his office before heading out for some reason. Me, "Okay Dave, I'll see you then." When Dave arrived a little after 11, the first thing he did was take a 15-minute break. Long drive, I understood. There was still most of the day ahead of us, and after the break, Dave finally got down to business booting up his computer. He had barely logged in when he stood up and announced he was taking his lunch. Okay. Something was going on, but I hadn't the foggiest idea what. After lunch, Dave finally got around to some work, putting in a good 20 minutes reading email before stopping by to see me. "Dave, I'm gonna take my second 15 now, then I'm heading home." Me, what? Dave, grinning like a nut. "Don't worry, I spoke to HR over the weekend." I didn't see Dave on Tuesday. His cell phone was going unanswered, and neither my boss or I had any luck finding out why. We didn't try hard. Not our zoo and not our monkey after all. Ditto for Wednesday, but whatever, he's probably just sick. And then on Thursday, I see Dave, before work, at the hotel breakfast buffet. Me, Dave, I was getting worried when you were no-show the last 2 days. Dave laughed a little, and after we'd piled our plates with bad scrambled eggs and burned sausage, told me a story. On Monday, the client had noticed him coming in late, doing no work, and leaving early, and called our company to complain. Dave, in turn, was called into a disciplinary meeting with his boss and local HR, who were prepared to terminate him over putting in for 32 hours of unearned overtime the previous week and not working at all the day before. Dave said they were serious, too. One of the guys from building security interrupted the meeting to deliver a box containing the personal effects from his desk. Dave had an ace, though. Well, 3 aces. An email from his boss instructing him to drive to Fort Wayne every day at his own expense, as a change in work location. 1. An email from corporate HR telling him that while he wasn't required to work overtime, he was required to report any overtime worked, including driving to or from a client. 2. And a page from his division's employee manual. 3. Which covered paid breaks off time. He then informed them that he was not working any more overtime, and after 3 hours driving in, 1.5 hours of break, and 3 hours home, it left him with just a half an hour a day to do actual work. Less, actually, if the traffic was bad. Oh, and that corporate HR was willing to stand behind him on it. He'd just spoken to them before the meeting. Dave, it took them about 3 seconds to realize they were screwed, and well, here I am back in action. And since everything was booked last minute, I'm in a suite with a jacuzzi, and my rental is a D Cadillac. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you liked it, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button. Have a good day!